Well, hello again. Welcome to the Overcomer blog. I'm Dr. John Hawkins Sr., and I'm coming to you from the Gateway Counseling Center here in Boynton Beach, Florida. I'm glad you've taken the time to tune in and spend a little time with us. You know, quite often I'm asked by people, what can I do to get my friend, my loved one to come into counseling? These are asked by people that are concerned about loved ones. They see issues, problems in their life, and feel like if I could just get them to come in, I think that this would be a help to them. You know, it's a very frustrating feeling for somebody you really care about, really love, and think something will help them, but you feel powerless to get them to do it. That's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about why some people just don't come to counseling, why they find it hard to do that. And maybe you're one of those people. Maybe you're that kind of person that you've never gone in for counseling, you have different ideas about it. And so I'd like to talk to you about some of the reasons that seem to pop up the most for me in my practice, why I think that a lot of folks don't come. And you see if any of these apply to you, and let me just cover some things today that maybe could change your thinking, a little bit. One of the first reasons that I think many folks don't come in is fear. And it's fear of the unknown. Well, we all kind of have that. If we don't know what's on the other side of the decision, what's on the other side of that issue, that can be kind of a scary thing, for us. So we have this natural tendency to, fear the unknown. So when people haven't gone to counseling, they don't know what to expect. They think it's maybe like the days of Freud when some guy's going to sit over in a corner, smoking on a pipe. He's got a goatee. You're going to be laid back on a couch. And he's going to try to pry out of you some of the deepest, darkest secrets of your life. And you're not so sure you want some stranger to do that. You don't know what he's going to get into. And maybe there's certain areas that you feel like, I don't want anybody to touch on that. I don't want to talk about that area. And I'm not sure what they're going to come out with. And a lot of people, they've had problems, traumas, things in their life that they've dealt with it their own way. Maybe they put it in a can, put a lid on it, buried it, and they don't want to dig it up. They don't want someone poking around in there. As far as they're concerned, hey, I've dealt with it and I'm moving on. And I always tell folks, when you bury things deep on the inside, they don't really go away. They always find a way out. And it's usually not a healthy or helpful way. It'll come out in mood disorders, anxiety, depression, physical problems. 80% of our illness is psychosomatic. It doesn't mean that it's in your head as far as it's not real. It just means it's not caused by something organic. It's caused by our, emotions. So that's a big issue for a lot of folks, is fear. And a lot of times what I tell folks is, a good way to, knowledge helps overcome fear. So a way to deal with that is give a phone call, talk to a therapist head or talk to their office. You can always say you're calling for a friend, and you have a friend that has this problem, and ask the questions that you have, that you're concerned about or afraid about. Trying to get some answers, before you come in. I always tell people, I don't make people talk about things they don't want to talk about or they're not ready to talk about. People have to build a certain level of trust before they're comfortable talking about certain things. So I always tell my clients, look, if you don't want to talk about that area, just say, I don't want to talk about it. And I said, there's always something we can, talk about. We can move on to another area till you're ready to, to talk about that. Sometimes people say, well, I'm afraid if people find out I'm going for marriage counseling, they'll think I have problems in my marriage. But that's not always the case. People that go to marriage counseling doesn't mean they're ready for divorce. Some are going to enhance the marriage. Some are going for preemptive, type situations. I tell folks, listen, I'm not going to tell anybody. Are you going to tell anybody? And people that really care about you, well, they're going to be glad that you're trying to do something because they're going to be for your marriage if they really care about you. So that's one major issue is the fear that people have. Another reason people don't go in is lack of self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is to be aware that something is wrong with me. Something's not right. Something's not healthy. Something's maybe not functioning in the right way. So for them, the issues are always somebody else. It's not me. It's everybody else has the problem, but I don't have the problem. The scripture talks about that when Jesus said, "Hey, look, why don't you first take the beam out of your eye before you look to take the speck out of your brother's eye?" Whenever there's a conflict, look first to yourself. Ask that question, what part am I in this, before I start looking at somebody else? But, we need to grow in self-awareness. All of us do, if we're going to live, a healthy life and a happy life. I mean, that's what kind of growth is in our life. I keep looking to better myself. And, there's positive consequences and negative consequences, usually in life. We live in this broken, messed up world, and it kind of depends on the decisions that I make. And I need to be aware of whether I'm making good decisions that'll lead to positive consequences or bad decisions that'll lead to negative consequences. I need to be able to see that and identify that, in my life. Another common issue of why people don't go is what I call the victim mentality. And we see a lot of that today. Everybody, matter of fact, in the culture is kind of encouraged to be a victim. We see it all around us in a lot of different areas. Everybody's like super sensitive and everybody wants to be a victim. Well, why is that? Well, if you're a little familiar, if you ever read much about Marx and communists, they divide the world into two groups of people, the oppressors and the oppressed. And so it's just those two groups. So if you are the oppressed, you're the victim. And the oppressors are the bad guys. The oppressed people, the victims, are the good guys. And so you then have the bad guys and the good guys. And so then if you want to deal with the oppressors, they deserve to be destroyed. You can use whatever you want, any means you want, to vilify them, to attack them, to destroy them. It's the old story, the ends justify the means, because after all, they're the bad guys. All that counts is you get rid of the bad guys. Now you think about that. If you're in a society that where a lot of people look at the world through that lens, well, what group do you want to be in? Do you want to be in the good guys, or do you want to be in the bad guys? Do you want to be the one who's the victim and nothing really is my fault, I don't have to take ownership or responsibility of my life? Or do I want to be the person that's trying to get destroyed? Now, if you go into our culture for the last 60 plus years, if you take all the major institutions of our country, it has been permeating our young people and people in general with this philosophy. And so that's why we're a very divided nation. We split up into groups, oppressors, the oppressed. And it just seems like, well, yeah, I'd rather be in the oppressed or the oppressor, part. I'd rather be one of the good guys than the bad guys. But the problem with that is that's a very cruel and damaging philosophy. Because when you make people a victim, when you tell them, look, it's not your fault, it's your parents' fault, it's your grandparents' fault, it's the society's fault, it's everybody else's fault, and nothing is your fault, you don't have any responsibility for you, what you rob people of is the power to find solutions for their life, for their future. In other words, if I'm going to be a victim, then I give away all that power. Then I'm going to view things as, well, I can't really help it. This is just because what other people or what life, has done to me, which means then I don't have it in my power to change that, fix that. Now, why would I want to give my happiness away to other people that I have no control over? Why would I want to look at my future and say, well, this is what I'd like to be, or what I'd like my future to look like, and give the power away and say, well, I'm just never going to, be that. Why did everyone want to come to America? in the last over 100 years or so. It's because they saw us as a land of opportunity, not equal outcomes, but equal opportunity. They saw as a place that you could come, and it doesn't matter what you have been or who your parents were or what your lineage was. If you're willing to work hard, do the right thing, you can create your own future. Having just the opportunity to create your own happiness. That's why everyone was coming here. We don't have to build walls to keep people in. We've got to do that to keep people out. You don't see people trying to bust in every place else. So this victim mentality, if I'm the victim, then nothing is my fault. I don't have any responsibility. So I don't have anything to fix. But if I take ownership for myself, maybe I can't fix it all by myself. But once I take that responsibility and say, you know what, I can change this, or I want to change this, then I'm willing to reach out to get help to make those changes in my life. And you know what you'll find in life is if you're willing to ask and reach out to improve or better yourself, you'll find people who are willing to help you. There's a lot of truly successful people that really enjoy helping others. Now, sure, there's some that aren't, and they don't care about anybody else. They don't care outside of the dollar. But there's a lot of folks, and there's a lot of retired successful people that would be glad to help and mentor generations behind them on how to do something positive with their life. And these people can be living or dead. That's what books are for. They can influence life and help us if we'll determine, well, I'm not going to have the victim mentality. Another reason is just an unwillingness to accept reality. A lot of times I'll talk with people that are they have this critical, angry attitude about life in general. All they see is darkness. The glass is always half empty, never half full. They just see the world going to hell in a handbasket, complain about everything, nothing good is happening. If you try to give them any encouragement or any solutions, they're like, well, why don't you look at it like this or look at it like that? They'll shoot it all down, and it's like after a while you run out of ideas, you run out of ways to help. You kind of come to the conclusion they don't really want to help, because whatever solution you put before them, they're going to shoot it down or disregard. And if you spend much time with them, after a while, you walk away, they just suck the life out of you. And you will feel depressed and hopeless for the time that you spent with them. Now, is the world a mess? Yeah, sure it is. Is there bad things happening in the world, injustice? Yep, sure is. But the world has always been that way since the beginning of time. And it will always, be that way. But there are some good things going on in the world. We just don't really hear about them because the news doesn't tell us about that, because, bad news sells. But if we'll look, we can find some good things in the world. And just try that a little bit on yourself. What do I have to be grateful for? What do I have that I could show some gratitude about? And you say, well, I can't think about anything. I can't think of anything good. Well, try thinking a little harder. And don't overlook the obvious, or don't overlook the simple things we take for granted. For example, did you wake up this morning? Can you breathe? You have all your limbs? I mean, just simple things that many people, take for granted. And if you start looking at those and start counting, eventually you'll see some others. Now, the world shouldn't be the way that it is, but it is. And so what we have to learn to do is to accept what we can't change what we can, and the rest we just turn over to the sovereign God, because we accept I'm not God. I can't change people and everything, and there's a lot of stuff in this world that I don't have any power over. And but if I will just start someplace, rather than be too proud or too insecure, Sometimes people have a personality disorder. These are all different reasons why people sometimes can't accept reality or create their own realities. And that's part of what keeps them from coming in for a counseling, because they just feel, well, everything's too bad and nothing's going to change it. Here's another thing that keeps people out of counseling: an unwillingness to change. It's kind of related to some of the other things that we've talked about. But if I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, then I don't have anything I need to change. I mean, that's pretty simple, pretty basic. Now, sure, people will say things like, well, I know I'm not perfect, and I probably need to change some things. But if you notice people who talk like that, they never get specific. They never talk about, well, what exactly is it that I need to change? And if they do start to change, it's like checking a box. You know, somebody will say to them, a boss or a mate, we need to change this or that or these 5 things. And so they'll check it off, but those changes seem to never last. Before long, they're right back around to where they used to be. Now, why is that? Because you don't produce lasting change by checking boxes. Because the reality is, when I'm checking boxes in my heart, I don't really believe that I need to change. I don't really believe that it's me. My finger is always pointed at somebody else. You know, if they would change, then all the problems would be solved. It's not really me. Real change is an inside job. You know, that's what repentance is. I change my mind about how I'm thinking and acting. And so from my heart, I feel like, you know, I need to make these changes for me. And that's what produces lasting change that stays with me long haul over a period of time, because I realize I need to change, and now I become willing to change. Now, we've all tried to change certain areas of our life that we feel are tried and failed. Now, as a Christian, there's a little thing called grace. Grace is when God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. So I found this little prayer helpful. Lord, I'm willing to be made willing. In other words, I can acknowledge I should change in this area. This is what you'd like, but I really don't want to. I'm being honest about it. But I am willing to be made willing. That's when I humble before him, he pours grace into my life. That's like putting gas into your car. It's what makes the engine go. And you know, you don't have to make all the changes on your own. You know, just like I talked about, other people can help you change, God can help you change. And here's one last reason that I found people don't come to counseling. It's what I call a lack of pain or a lack of motivation. People just aren't motivated to change. We tend to like the status quo versus change. We get used to it, we get comfortable to it, and sometimes we wonder, why do people keep acting in the same way that's self-destructive, that hurts other people, it doesn't take them where they want to go? Why don't they make the change? Because they don't have a motivational crisis. It's much easier just to keep doing the same thing even when the same thing isn't good and it's not working. Or maybe we don't know what else to do to, you know, replace it. But, you know, it's what I call the pleasure-pain principle. The pleasure from staying the same outweighs the pain of making the change. But when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pleasure of staying the same, now I start to get motivated to change. Because we're going to be motivated by one of those two principles, pleasure or pain. And so what happens, sometimes this is people stopping enabling. Sometimes this is God turning up the heat on us to get our attention and to start the change, you know, process. And so when I start to say, wait a minute, you know, this is getting too costly. This is getting too hurtful. I don't like what this is doing in my life. Now I'm approaching the motivational crisis. And truthfully, a lot of times that's what brings people in for counseling. The pain level has gotten too high. You know, a lot of us as men, we don't like to go to doctors and till we get enough pain. You know, we get enough pain, then boom, you know, I'm gone. We'll quit complaining to our wife. So don't wait until you have some big crisis in your life. You know, it's just like your health. It's better to catch it early, and it's easier to heal and deal with then than let it get to stage 4. And so I hope that you'll realize you don't have to keep struggling alone. And life is too short to live in pain and the challenges of unfixed things in our life. Reach out for someone to help you. Give counseling a shot and learn through that you can be an overcomer. If we can be any help to you, just look us up on gatewaycounseling.com and kind of check us out on the website, and we'll be glad to help you in any way we can. Well, until next time, just remember, you can overcome, and I look forward to seeing you then. Bye now.